Hello there, yes, it's been a while, but we're back again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the second episode of this next season of Book It. I'm Daniel Campbell, taking over from the GOAT. Go watch the previous episode to find out all about that drama. But for now, you've seen what happened on our last episode. Sarah Grieve, she put up a great performance against Quacker Adji. Quacker did a great job himself. Let's commend him. We'll commend him, fair enough. And Sarah came out on top ultimately. Sarah has advanced to a number one contenders match against Strack, which will air later in this season. But enough about that. We're getting on to the show that we have here today. If you're here on the YouTube channel, go have a look at what we have. We have Quiz Showdown, another show that I'm very familiar with. We also have the Chronicles of the 365 Championship. It's a playlist that you can watch for a good laugh. Someone on here might know a thing or two about it. In fact, both our gentlemen here know a thing or two about it. I know someone who is champion. So, moving on swiftly, we have two competitors here. They are going to be booking a WWE vs TNA pay-per-view that is set in June 2010. Very important date because this was a big time in WWE. Things were changing. Of course, as we know in WWE, the Nexus arrived. In TNA, everything was starting to change. Immortal and Fortune were slowly beginning to develop, and everything was going a bit haywire in TNA, to be fair. As most stuff does, fair enough, in TNA. But here we're gonna just have a little bit of fun. Fantasy booking WWE vs TNA 2010. What can happen? We will find out. So with that out of the way, I am bringing on our first contestant. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing first. This man is 1/4 of Saturday Draft Live. He is a former Eat Sleep Suplex Retweet champion, a former 365 champion, a former Quiz Showdown champion, and I don't know about you, he's got one heck of a way with the birds. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Jack Graham.
Oh, back once again to Book It.
I like your plug there, Jack. How are you feeling?
I'm very mixed feelings. I'm looking forward to doing it. I don't know how it will all go, but I'm going the same tactic that I did in my last Book It appearance by just going pure exhibition with it, with my card, how that's all going. So we'll see how that fares. But no, I think it'll be a good time.
No, I think it'll be very good. In terms of your previous appearance on Book It, now you were in the Book It tournament that was in season 1. You weren't successful, however, against Ross McLeod when you were booking WWE versus WCW. How do you think you'll fare now that it is WWE versus TNA?
Well, I'm glad that it is about 20 years on from that, I guess. So it has that bit of a time difference for me. There's a bit more familiarity about the time when I started to kind of get back into wrestling. So it's no straight up with kind of stuff that I know, but I'd have some sort of foundation knowledge, so to speak. So once I kind of started looking at things, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that happening. So it's maybe not to my field of strength, but it's been a bit of a familiar ground, I could say.
That sounds pretty good. Was there anything about WWE or TNA at the time that you quite liked?
TNA, it was the 8-sided ring. There's the 6-sided, whatever it is, I don't know. Different, not 4 anyway. And it was, I think the thing with that was, because it was on a Friday night, and it was on, I can't remember what the channel was in Freeview, but it was channel 21. So I'd just sit there in my bed 9 o'clock at night, and I'd just flick it on, and I was just wrestling. And I saw all these kind of old WWE folk at the time, that were on TNA, and I'm like, oh yeah, I recognise these folk. And I thought, well, this is maybe something that's going to come up, and obviously we know what happened after that, but...
Yeah, that's very true. A lot of things changed in TNA at that point. The ring being one of them when I believe Hogan and Bischoff came in that year and put it back to the 4-sided ring.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, TNA was always a 6-sided ring. That's just me personally. I know obviously they're using the 4-sided ring now as Impact Wrestling, but hey, that's what I grew up with. But enough about our rambling of TNA reminiscing. Let us bring on your opponent today, someone you know very well. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing second. He is another quarter of Saturday Draft Live. He is also half of East Meets West, half of the Brothers McLeod. He is a former 11-time Eat Sleep Suplex Retweet champion, a former 365 champion, a 2-time Quiz Showdown champion, and for some strange reason is known to absolutely loathe the number 44. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Scott McLeod.
Hello.
I had to bring up 44, my friend, I'm sorry.
Of course it is. It's in the contract at this stage.
Yep. Signed, sealed, and delivered, my friend.
I'm looking forward to this. I don't know how Jack's feeling. I think the pressure's more on you, Jack. Because you lost the Quiz Showdown Championship, hosted by a very dapper-looking young man, if I do say so myself. Your leads in the draft is slowly but surely the gap is slipping away from you, and now you have to go up against me and yet another TNA battle at Book It. I'm going to say the pressure's on you more than it is me.
100%. You know what the thing is as well? My downfall in Eat, Sleep, Suplex, Retweet has started when the fans have came back to wrestling. So I'm calling for COVID to come back, bring back the Thunderdome, bring back the Performance Centre watching the wrestling. That's what I need, and my fortunes will rise again in this podcast.
Well, good luck with that.
I don't think anyone wants to see any fortunes rising again. But moving on, so, yeah, obligatory fortune reference for me. First we had Stevie doing it on Quiz Showdown months ago, and then we get me doing this. But I think we've seen enough of the Thunderdome. We've seen enough of the Thunderdome. We just had like a Quiz Showdown on it, Quiz Showdown Beyond Thunderdome. Go check it out, it's available on the YouTube channel. So, cheap plug. Right here on YouTube. This is how we start, and we mean to go on, ladies and gentlemen. So, Scott, you did mention it earlier. This is actually your second time on Book It, booking TNA. How are you feeling this time?
I'm still confident about it. I know I'm familiar with both eras of TNA. I feel like I went too ambitious, putting too many people in my main event last time. It's not worked out when you see what my main event is this time around. There's still quite a few people in it, but it makes sense with the stipulation as it is. But I went too ambitious rather than just a one-on-one match. I think that let me down at the end. And Strag with his all-new stipulation, the Texas Death Match. I didn't realise that at the time, but I should have known that at the time. So it wasn't a new stipulation. I should have argued that at the time.
Very interesting. Could that lead to some retribution further down the line? We'll wait and see. But yes, lads, we are here to book WWE vs TNA, a June 2010 pay-per-view. And as ever, there are a few conditions that we have to abide by. So to start off, you'll have to write a card that has 7 matches maximum, along with a maximum of 5 segments. Segments being anything that happens out with the actual match. There are 3 maximum gimmick matches you can use. So basically anything that is not a regular, like 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, whatever kind of match. Anything that's got a little bit of an added space to it. You are allowed up to 2 champion versus champion matches. I put it at 2 just because I know with a lot of specials like this, when you're booking company against company, the temptation could be there just to do World Champion versus Impact Champion, X Division versus US Champion, all these kind of things. That's why we keep it at a couple of them. That leaves you open to do stuff on the rest of the card. And the big one, people will know, of course, 2 major icons of WWE and TNA at this point who were in the company at this time, but you are not allowed to use Sting versus The Undertaker. You've got to give me something better, or nothing with them at all. It's up to you. And, gents, I have drawn randomly, before this show, who is going to be going first, and Jack Graham, good laddie. You're up first.
Dear. Oh dear. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
The pressure is on. Now, just remember, of course, you have your 7 matches, 5 segments maximum, and you have 10 minutes to present it. Should you go over, I could dock you points.
That's fine. I am ready.
That is excellent, Scott. I will mute myself and you. And Jack, when you are ready, your 10 minutes will begin now.
Right. Hello, everyone. This is the WWE vs TNA June 2010 pay-per-view that I am calling Implosion. And it's going to have the commentary team of JR and Mike Tenay. And it's going to start with an opening segment, and it's the usual No Chance in Hell theme music comes in with Vincent Mann doing his strut, walking down the lane, the whatever you ramp call it thing, doing all that, blah, blah, blah. Teddy Long comes out as well, and they're kind of explaining how the format of this pay-per-view is going, and it's just straight up Survivor Series type, just WWE versus TNA, and Vince just goes on a tirade of how they're going to wipe the floor with TNA, how they're a pile of shite, they're nothing to us, and then gets the crowd going, TNA have no chance in hell, and Teddy Long's going, holla, 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 and then all of a sudden, Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff come out, and they come down, a lot of words, blah, 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 saying, you ain't got no chance in hell here, brother. And Eric Bischoff's just kind of like, yeah, what he said, yeah. And then you just have a big stare down, and then you hear Madison Rayne's music start, and it's the first match of the evening. And we're going to see Madison Rayne versus Beth Phoenix, which is a solid opener match. There's nothing more to it. There's no juicy story that's going on. There's nothing happening of that ilk, but we do see Beth Phoenix pick up the win and pick up the first W for WWE in an 8-minute match. So it's gone on about 15 minutes in total, the show so far. We see segment 2, and it's just Jeremy Borash knocking on the locker room door, opens it, and just sees Kane with a lighter, flicking it on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off, and just going, fire, 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 fire. And then blackness cuts out for a bit. Next, we've got the Usos versus Beer Money in a tag team match going at it. This is arguably one of the matches of the night. They're both classic tag teams that everyone knows and loves, and they get on. This match goes for about 10 minutes as well, and Beer Money get the win. A bit dirty, a bit cheap. Like they just get a beer ball and smack it over the head of Jimmy Uso and get a wee roll up victory, and then they have a drink and they celebrate with the fans and they chalk up one each for WWE and TNA. We go to segment 3, and we see Desmond Wolfe, or who we might know as Nigel McGuinness, just prepping up, getting ready for his match that's coming on later tonight. And as he's getting ready, a young Daniel Bryan appears to have a stare down with him, and they just look at each other for ages. And then Bryan says, "Once you're past Punk tonight, maybe I'll see you later on." And at that finishes. We get our third match. 15 minutes this match is going to be. It's going to be Chris Jericho versus Samoa Joe. And this is just straight up Joe just kind of kicking the shit out of Jericho for most of this, just kind of like bullying him, beating him up and whatnot. But he does not win. Jericho gets a roll up, feet on the ropes, 1, 2, 3, tries to run away. Joe's not having any of it, gets a steel chair, whacks him about silly, brings him back into the ring, puts on the Kikina clutch, makes him pass out. So even though WWE get the 2-1 win here, Joe's still the kind of man that's standing on top. Then after this, we get on to another women's match, and it is the beautiful people of Andrina Love and Velvet Sky going up against the Bella Twins. And no Bella magic happens here, because this is the squash match of the night. Bella Twins get absolutely shat on, absolutely not good enough for Andrina Love and Velvet Sky, and they get the win, easy days. Brie Bella just can't cope when Nikki's taken out at one point and just gets double teamed, and that's it, 2 each. We go on to our next segment of the match, and of the night. We find out that the main event is going to be Undertaker against a TNA talent, but we don't know who that TNA talent is. But we see in the manager's office with Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff that Ric Flair is sitting talking to them. He's getting on, but then we see somebody knock the door, and Sting bursts through, and Sting's like, "I want this match with Taker," and then Hulk Hogan's like about to accept it. Bischoff goes, "Sorry, it's too late. We've already booked a match. It's going to be AJ Styles versus Undertaker for the main event." AJ Styles sitting about waiting at the door, ha 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 ha, laughing at him, and Sting goes, "I'm not happy at this, but you better bring home the W against this man." Match 5, we get on to CM Punk versus Wolf. This goes for about 15 minutes as well. And the crowd is so pumped for this, because this is a kind of dream match we see here alongside the kind of Usos and Beer Money match. We do see, during the end of the match, Wolf is a bit worse for wear. He's about to lose, and Bryan starts to walk down the entrance ramp just staring, and kind of catches Wolf's eye, and Punk thinks that Bryan's going to help him to bring the home win for WWE here. But when the referee's looking away, Bryan smacks about Punk. Wolf gets the win. TNA go up and talk, and we see Bryan and Wolf just have a kind of mutual respect shown with each other, and kind of like a pointing like we're going to do great things type thing. Match number 6, we get on Kane versus Abyss in an Inferno match. Chaos is expected. There's thumbtacks, there's lots of blood, there's blades, there's all sorts. Things are going on, and Kane ends up getting the win by chokeslamming Abyss through a flaming table. But when he's about to celebrate, he's lifting his hands up and he's about to bring it down for more fire. When he brings his hands down, the lights go out, and then all you see is Sting in the ring, hits his Scorpion Death Driver on him, and then grabs a mic, and then looks at the camera and goes, "I'll be seeing you soon, Taker. Real soon. Just not tonight." As we get on to our main event. That match about 20 minutes as well, sorry. We get on to our final match tonight. So it's Undertaker with Paul Bearer against Styles or Ric Flair in a casket match. This goes for about 30 minutes. Main event. Styles tries to keep the upper hand at most of it, but it's a pretty even match until a point where Styles lowblows Taker. And we see that he's just kind of dicking him about a wee bit here and there. And then the tides turn when Undertaker does his usual kind of, gets up, ready to go. Ric Flair tries to get involved. Paul Bearer smacks him in the back of the head by an arm. AJ Styles gets hit with a choke slam, tombstone pile driver, into the casket. Match finished. WWE win 4-3. Undertaker takes the knee, hand up, lightning comes down, smacks down a TNA sign on the stage, falls, the WWE sign lights up and shines. And Vince McMahon comes down to celebrate with Undertaker, and then Vince McMahon gets chokeslammed too, because why not? And that's the end of the show.
Very, very interesting card that you have there. Some good directions there that I quite like. I like the idea of Wolf and Daniel Bryan having some kind of interaction throughout the night. Very interesting, given that at this point, this was around about the time that there was the whole Bryan was fired from the Nexus thing, so that there could be a little bit of ambiguity there, perhaps. I'll come back to you on that later on. Scott, do you have any thoughts on that before we go on to yours?
I have some things I could probably be petty about to try and figure out, because we both want one here, but I think I'll wait till I've presented my card to make those points.
Ooh. I like the sound of that. I love it when you guys go to war in this one. Jack, you have presented a very fine card there. We will mute you and myself just now, and up next, it is Scott McLeod, the hater of 44. Scott, are you ready?
I may cut a bit fine with this 10-minute time limit, but I'm going to do my best.
Well, do what you can, my friend. Scott, your 10 minutes begins now.
Alrighty, we've got WWE versus TNA in a show which they'd used later on, but I'm bringing it forward. This is Worlds Collide. It's live from WWE's spiritual home of Madison Square Garden, with a 3-man commentary team of Michael Cole, Gerald Lawler, and TNA. And the opening match is to decide the advantage in the main event's lethal lockdown match. Both teams are going to select one member. We don't know who it's going to be to compete, and the winner, whoever wins their side, gets the advantage later on. Out for TNA comes Samoa Joe, and he's sitting there waiting to see who it's going to be, and the crowd erupt when the opening riff of Killswitch Engage as Fire Burns hits as CM Punk walks to the ring. The crowd remember their time in Ring of Honor. They're chanting, "This is Austin" for the first minute of the match. Both men are going at it, give you some little teaser of what they could do back in the day when they had those trilogy of matches. It goes 11 minutes 24 as Joe looks like he has it all set in hand with the Coquina clutch. Punk does the old Bret Hart trick, walks up the turnbuckle, rolls through, manages to catch Joe with a surprise roll-up, and Team WWE take the first point and the advantage going into Lethal Lockdown, TNA's signature match, by the way, which the commentators say could that give a psychological edge to WWE. Jeff Jarrett's backstage. He expresses, he's a bit, upset that, TNA didn't start off the night with a win, but he's still very optimistic. And then who strokes him? In comes big Vince McMahon, talking about, "Oh, Jeff, look what you've been done with yourself since I fired you live on TV. But just like you in 2001, after tonight, TNA will be double G, double O, double N, double E, gone. As we got back to the ring for our next match, it's X Division champion Douglas Williams taking on Intercontinental champion Kofi Kingston. Williams is trying to ground Kofi Kingston, doesn't like him going high flying. His technical edge is really a bit too much for Kingston at points. Kingston finds all the advantage that he can at points. He manages to get a quick 2 after the SOS. When he goes for the, he's not got a lot of energy when he goes for the Trouble in Paradise. Douglas moves, hits the Rolling Chaos Theory to tie it up, and after just 10 minutes, Williams wins. We go into our third match. It's not really champion v champion because they are champions, as it's a ladder match between then TNA champion Rob Van Dam taking on World Heavyweight champion Rey Mysterio. But after a quick flip of the coin, they decide whose championship will be hung above the ring and put on the line in this ladder match. And it's decided that Rey's World Heavyweight title will be the one that's on the line. This gets about 15 minutes. This is when at the time where both men can still, they still go before injury, especially to Rey's knees, so they started to slow them down. You got Van Dam doing leg drops across the ladder along the barricade. You got Rey, hitting a 619 on the outside and causing Van Dam to fall back on the ladder. Van Dam hits a 5-star, but he's taking a bit out, so he's struggling to climb the ladder. Rey manages to slip through the ropes, hit a dropkick, and dropkick Van Dam. He lands stomach first onto the ropes, bounces to the outside, and buys Rey enough time to climb the ladder, reclaim his World Heavyweight Championship, and it's 2-1 to WWE. Backstage, we have then WWE Champion Sheamus, who won at the same show that Rey won his World Heavyweight title, for context, who's talking about the rumours of, well, while you guys had the advantage, we heard rumours that your teammates John Cena and Chris Jericho, they're not getting along. What will happen to the team? And you're like, hey, I don't care. I know the guys have been around long, but I'm the WWE champion. I'm the face of this company. I'm the one leading the charge here. So as long as those guys listen to me, I'll be alright in this lethal lockdown match. Now we have our women's match of the evening. It is the co-women's champions, Laycool, taking on the then Knockouts tag team champions, the beautiful people represented by Velvet Sky and Madison Rayne, accompanied to the ring by Lacey Von Erich. We've also got members of the various women's rosters around ringside. It's not officially a lumberjill or lumberjack match, but they're just there for more support and everything. We also have Gail Kim, who at this point is still under WWE contract. He wouldn't go back to TNA for another year. But, it's back and forth, there's chaos. A referee accidentally gets taken down. Lacey Von Erich gets put off the apron by Michelle McCool, who then lifts up Madison Rayne for her camera, what's called, but it's basically like a sales cut. She looks right down the camera and says, "This is how you do it, AJ." Hits it. As they go to wake up the referee, Gail Kim walks in, hits Michelle McCool with one of the Knockouts tag belts, and jumps ship back to TNA, where she was appreciated and helps TNA tie up 2 each. Beautiful people win the match. Then backstage, we got an interaction between Chris Jericho and John Cena, and he's just like, "Listen, you ingrate. I am the best in the world at what I do, and if you listen to me, we will win against these total non-stop troglodytes in tonight's main event." I'm making that segment up as I go along. I just put down Cena and Jericho argue. Next up, we have the Monsters Ball match with Abyss taking on Kane. And, Abyss has been making some, proclamations that, Kane, you're not as much of a monster as you used to be. So Abyss is waiting in the ring. He's got Janice's big spiky stick thing that he had, and he's waiting in the ring, and Kane's music hits. Kane doesn't come out, and everybody's waiting, like, where the hell is Kane? Lights go down, and a new music that we haven't heard in a long time, some organs play, as for one night only, Kane has brought back his mask to help find the monster, to help take out Abyss. A 12-minute brawl this goes. This is not a wrestling match, this is a brawl. They're fighting all around the ring. They've got chairs, they've got tables coming out, they've got thumbtacks at the end. Abyss tries to hit a tombstone. Kane manages to roll through. He can't quite get Abyss up. Abyss manages to throw him out, hit him with the black hole slam, but it's not enough. Goes for a Janice, swings wildly at Kane. Kane hits a boot to the face, sends him off the ropes. Choke slam onto thumbtack by Kane. And then finally manages to find with the adrenaline enough strength to tombstone Abyss. 1, 2, 3. Kane, with the help of his mask, manages to tie up, get the advantage back to Team WWE. For an ultimate match before our lethal lockdown will be a tag team match featuring Beer Money, accompanied to the ring by Ric Flair, as they're part of the Fortune stable, taking on the Hart Dynasty, Tyson Kidd and David Hart Smith, accompanied by Natalya. Strong back and forth match, goes about 13 minutes. At one point, Flair's constantly trying to get involved. Eventually, Natalya's getting all up in his face, and he shoves her, and she's not happy about it. Fans like, oh, and then suddenly a big guitar riff hits that our fans remember. They go mental. Dun 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 dun. Here comes Bret Hart. Out comes Bret Hart to the ring. He squares up to Ric Flair. They're shoving him back. Flair's throwing his jacket off. He's going mental. The referee's distracted by all this, and so Bret is almost caused a disadvantage to his team because James Storm's got the beer bottle. He takes a sip, spits the beer into the eyes of Tyson Kidd. Last call, super kick. The referee turns around and see that Kidd is down. Counts to 3. Beer money with the accidental distraction by Bret Hart managed to get the win, and they've managed to drag Flair away like that. Pal, you have to apologise for trying to start a fight on a night out. And that takes us down, all tied up 3-3, going into our main event, the Lethal Lockdown match. As we have Team WWE starting off, they had the advantage. John Cena comes out for Team WWE. He wants to start. He's a valiant member of the team, and his opponent to start for Team TNA is Kurt Angle, and they square off each other for the first 5 minutes before the next entry comes out. And Angle looks down right at Cena and goes, "You still have that ruthless aggression," and they both start swinging at each other. Angle manages to take Cena down, throwing him in the cage, and he locks the ankle lock in to try and do enough damage on Cena. So it's just 1-on-1 with the next WWE guy comes in. And it's somebody that Angle knows from the SmackDown 6 days. It's Edge coming down. He and Edge go at it for a little bit. Cena and Edge reluctantly have to team up on Angle. Then out comes entrant number 2. It's Samoa Joe for Team TNA. He just goes right at both Cena and Edge, throwing right hands. Edge goes for a spear, but he does his casual just walk away, as causing Edge to go right into the corner. Punk comes out for his to help give the advantage to Team WWE. He and Joe go back at it, renewing hostilities from another. Joe's still annoyed that he got caught with that roll-up. And also somebody else who's still annoyed at Punk from something that happened when he was in WWE. Jeff Hardy for Team TNA comes out. They renew hostilities. Sheamus is the 4th man for Team WWE, followed by AJ Styles. Jericho goes to get in the ring. He's the final man for Team WWE. But as he opens the cage door, Cena accidentally gets knocked into Jericho, sending him to the outside. So then when Jericho finally gets in, he grabs Cena and throws him out the cage like, "We don't need this ingrate on our team. We'll win fine by ourselves." And then out comes Mr. Anderson, the final member of Team TNA, who just casually hits Cena with his microphone on the way to the ring. Cena's down for a little while, but then the advantage swings to Team TNA as the weapons lower from the ring. They're battering Team WWE. Vince comes out like, "Get up, John. Get up, damn it." And then out comes Jeff Jarrett, annoyed from the comments there, hits a guitar onto Vince McMahon's head, but Cena manages to recover in time. Picks up Jeff Jarrett, hits an AAA to Jeff Jarrett through the table, gets back into the ring, and helps make it all even. And then at one point, there's a steel chair in Cena's hands. It looks like he's going to smack Jericho with it, and he just yells, "Move!" and just throws it, and it careens right into the face of AJ Styles, who then gets hit with a code breaker, gets hit with a brogue kick, and basically a series of WWE finishers as John Cena finishes it off with an AAA. 1, 2, 3. Team WWE stand tall. Cena and Jericho kind of look at each other, they still don't trust each other, but they're happy that they got the win. As Vince McMahon slowly gets up, blood trickling down his head, like, "Yes, that's good shit, damn it."
That's good shit, damn it.
I had
a very classic line there.
I checked my timer, I had 4 seconds left.
I was looking at the time as well, just like, whoa, cutting it close now. But that was a very good card there. I'm liking that there's obviously Lethal Lockdown. You can never go wrong with a Lethal Lockdown match.
Yeah, I almost wanted to do War Games, the idea that they maybe brought forward War Games. I thought Lethal Lockdown basically is War Games, and it's their signature match. So
it's War Games in kindergarten, essentially.
Yeah, minus one ring.
Yeah, that part as well. But very good from both of you. So I will now, instead of me going straight into the analytical part, I'm going to allow you both a chance to kind of dissect each other's cards. So, Jack, was there any issues you had with Scott's card?
See, to be honest, no. I think there's a very stark difference between Scott and I on knowledge here of what's actually. I completely forgot Lethal Lockdown was a thing. I think that I think I was going on creating a story through the pay-per-view where you were able to kind of use stuff that was going on with both companies at the time. I was just taking it as it is. So we both went down different routes, but I think you were able to utilise the rosters better than what maybe I would, especially with the main event. And I went down a different route building towards an Undertaker main event and who was going to get it, and kind of toy along with the plans that Sting wanted it, but he wasn't going to get it, so he kind of raised shit anyway. So I kind of used that in a different way because I couldn't have that match. So, but I did like, I liked your card, Scott. It's clear that you know your shit.
Thank you. I tried to create a story through the night as well. You mean I've got dissension within the Team WWE. I had to double check stuff who was champions at the time because I legit thought Cena was WWE champion. I was going to say, he's starting off because he's WWE champion, but I realised no. If I've got raised world champion because at the June pay-per-view he won the title, at that same pay-per-view Cena lost to Sheamus the WWE title. So I realised like if I'm going by that logic, then I can't pick and choose who's the champion. I need to go accurately for the time. And so I try to keep that, but then also add some fantasy elements in it, like Gail Kim defecting before she did in real life, and Kay for one night only bringing back the mask. There was a point where I was like ready to say it before Daniel did because I didn't know what it was going to take to win. You know, sometimes the smallest point will sink somebody's argument. But I was ready to talk about, do we count Daniel Bryan? Because he was fired in June of 2010, but you know, it's a bit of a murky water there.
I would say that because everything happened so quickly with the Daniel Bryan thing, in terms of the context of the story, I'll admit I'm cool with him being there. Mm-hmm. Because he's technically not shown as being strictly affiliated to WWE. Mm-hmm. Because he could have just shown up, he could have just been TNA, brought him in as like their contribution to the show, perhaps. That's a possible way people could angle that. But I thought it was quite interesting because you have that story there, Daniel Bryan and Nigel McGuinness. Like, you don't need to say much more there. So I quite enjoyed that aspect. Trying to think, in terms of... one thing I do want to ask. So, your use of beer money is very different for the two of you. So, Scott, you went with the Hart Dynasty. Jack, you went with the Usos. So you said the Usos were a classic tag team, correct?
Yeah, I was more being like figurative as we know them, but I know at the time that it was that kind of up and coming. They were just like that type of thing. So I didn't put that across there.
That's fair enough. Just the reason that made me curious is that if I remember correctly, the Usos only debuted the month prior.
Yeah,
so sorry, go on.
Yeah, because I think the June pay-per-view is the first official like WWE pay-per-view match, and I think it's against the Hart Dynasty, which is why I was hesitant to use them. I think, they're still fairly new. And the issue was, I wanted a tag match on the show, but like the issue was, other than the Usos and the Hart Dynasty, WWE side in 2010 is significantly weaker for tag teams than TNA side, because you got beer money, you could have got Team 3D, Machine Guns. That side's like, that's one of the aspects at that time that TNA was doing better than WWE.
For me, it was regardless of how new they were to the roster or not. I just said that it was so thin, and there were stark like kind of levels between them and the other tag teams at the time. I didn't want to go with a Hart Dynasty. I didn't fancy the Usos beer money. Even at that time, they'd only been in a month, and I just said they're in that pay per view the next month. So clearly there was the backing behind them. So why couldn't they go up against beer money at that time?
Yeah. Now, if I'm looking through your cards, in terms of, like, because one thing we kind of look at, if we're doing these kind of more historical shows, particularly for these time periods, we look at who's in the roster at that point. And I would even extend that to certain tag teams because, Jack, I do hate to say this, but Angelina Love was not in The Beautiful People in June 2010.
Yeah, she'd been kicked out. I think by then there was Lacey, Velvet, and Madison.
See, again, I just didn't know that. I checked the roster. I saw that she was still on the roster, so I included it. And as I said before as well, I wasn't like going by story. I was just going by exhibition. I knew they were the Beautiful People, so I just put it in as the Beautiful People. I wasn't kind of taking story before it. So that's I understand if there's a docking of a point for that, but it's just the way that I went with it.
That's fair. So I'll look at first how you adhere to the stipulations first, and then I'll kind of go to the rest of the card to kind of figure out what I'm thinking here. So, you both were pretty good with the matches and the segment limits. Scott, I think if I kept count, you actually used 4 segments, so you didn't even need the 5th.
I think I got 3 segments. I got it, and then Sheamus and the Cena segment. Cena with Jericho, like it's segments.
Oh yeah, just 3. Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, those were more difficult to figure out because I wanted something to break up the between matches, but I could not think of what to put in.
Yeah, it's quite, like when you're booking cards like that, it's quite difficult because I even had to go myself at booking the one that we did for the finale of the tournament, the Raw after WrestleMania. I had to go at that myself, and even that was tough trying to figure out how you space it all between like when you use the segments as well. So in terms of your gimmick matches, Scott, you went with a full 3 gimmick matches. You went with Monsters Ball, a ladder match, and Lethal Lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack went for the Inferno match.
Mm-hmm.
So
I went for the casket match as well, the main event.
Oh yes, casket match, sorry. So Inferno match and casket match. 2 very interesting matches there. And it's quite interesting as well, particularly because you both have Kane and Abyss in a match. Just 2 different stipulations.
Yeah. I almost had them in an Inferno match or casket match at one point. But I was trying to... I thought, Casket's more Taker's thing. And I thought, but Monsters Ball, it just sounds like a cooler stipulation. And like trying to employ more of the TNA like gimmick names in this pay-per-view.
I think for me, the only reason I went Inferno match is because what I wanted to happen playing it was Sting. I just thought it'd be a really cool thing, having all the flames about it, then more flames coming, and then just it goes like pitch black after that, and then this like Sting comes. So it was more just kind of for the story I was building. That's why I went Inferno.
Yeah, it's quite a good touch you did there with like Sting just blacking everything out. I quite like the sound of that. I don't know what else. Of course, Scott, for your one, you had Kane bringing back his mask to combat Abyss. Mm-hmm. Mask versus mask, as anyone would say. I do have to ask, would Kane also have a classic outfit as well?
I didn't really think of that. I said like the music would probably be like more akin to him. I'm not sure what his outfit would be because there's a few choices. You could have went the full length one. You could have just went the very tank top when he got jacked. So I didn't really think of the outfit. I just thought more the mask. The mask would have been classic mask, so I'm assuming outfit wise it would have had to have been the classic with one arm. Or it would have only been for the one night.
Yeah, but still a very nice cameo from that outfit. Looking at the stipulation where I said up to 2 champion versus champion matches can be used. Scott, you had a couple there. Mm-hmm. In fact, you had like the ladder match with Ray and RVD. You had Kofi and Douglas Williams. Let's see what else. You also I had to double check this. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say I knew this would be agree here. Like the tag match, women's tag match, and the Kofi match. I think I count them as the champion tag matches. This one is a championship defense. It just happens to be that both of them are champions, and they chose to. For added intrigue, we don't know whose belt's going to be until the night, and then it was a championship because you said that championship defense was an option.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. I mean, the way I was looking at it, I wasn't really counting Lay Cool versus Beautiful People myself, just because it's 2 different titles. That was kind of my logic on it, but that's fair enough. Jack, I don't believe I could see a champion versus champion match on your card, which is quite interesting. Again,
it was just purely exhibition. That just went on namesake of what I would have wanted to see.
You just wanted to show off the best talent, essentially.
Yeah, obviously I've left like a lot of like omissions, like John Cena and Kurt Angle. Again, I just completely forgot Lethal Lockdown's thing, so I didn't know that I probably would have included that in some way to have them in. And I was thinking, fuck, how am I going to do this? I didn't want just one women's match either. I wanted a couple, just to like. I know that obviously the TNA's women's roster is really good at the time, and not that I'm saying WWE's wasn't, but it was a bit blander and weaker, but I was still wanting to show like highlight cases where there's both spots of their rosters is good, so I went down that route, and obviously I've kind of just kept it tags and singles matches and the 2 gimmick matches at the end.
It's quite a good way to go about it. I mean, it's showing off the best that the company has to offer at that point. It doesn't need to be crammed with the huge names like Cena and Angle and such. It can be filled with other talent who will also, equally shine as bright as them. On the other condition I had, which was not allowing Sting versus Undertaker. So, Scott featured neither actually competing on the card, and Jack, you had Undertaker and AJ, but Sting was floating about for a couple of segments as well. So, tell me behind the logic of your options. Jack first.
I wanted. Obviously, we've had AJ Undertaker at WrestleMania, but that was like, I won't say not in his prime, but like AJ back in TNA, that was like when you would never have thought he'd be in a WWE ring at that point. You just thought that he is like king of the independents. So I thought I want that to happen. But obviously, when you've got Undertaker in one roster and Sting in the other, you kind of there's the expectancy. I used that in my book it card for the last match I did, Undertaker versus like Sting in a Hell in a Cell match. Mm-hmm. But obviously we weren't allowed to get it, so I wanted to be able to tease it in a way that it's maybe a match that can be expected down the line. I kind of wanted to maybe implement a future story going on and just kind of have the background segments kind of mean something for what I was kind of wanting to go down direction story-wise. So that was the kind of the thinking behind it for me. And then getting Ric Flair, obviously, by fortune, as you were saying, he was managing AJ Styles at the time as well. So it's like, have that play in to get him like kind of, it could have been Sting, but because I got in there and kind of sweet talked them first, it's coming to my camp type thing.
Yeah, interesting. Scott.
Yeah, the Sting Taker match is not a match that's really interested me as much as other fans. I think because the best time to have it was at the time where it wasn't the most impossible. So I think the times where it was impossible, it wasn't as appealing. So I didn't plan on using it even before you mentioned that we couldn't have it. Sting almost was on the card. He was almost on Team TNA for the lockdown match. But it was a case of on both sides there was so much talent I really wanted to include that I think he either got switched out for either Hardy or Anderson at the time. So I kind of switched him out. Taker might have appeared on the card if I'd stuck with the casket match. I had the idea of a spot of like Abyss goes to win, opens the casket, Taker pops out of it or something like that. But once I got to the Monsters Ball idea, and then the idea of Kane bringing his mask back, Taker didn't really fit in there. So I just kept them both in order. I think both cards are ones where like there's still different admissions, as Jack said. But for me, I just couldn't find a place for Taker or Sting.
That's fair enough. It's very interesting. Also, I picked up neither of you mentioned, because obviously there was a big thing about Taker at that time, because I believe this was around the time that he had just had a bit of an accident with Rey Mysterio's knee brace.
Yeah.
And I think he was maybe in like the Fatal 4-Way main event of the pay-per-view, was taken out. But in terms of his use here, I would happily see AJ and Taker in some format. I would happily see some kind of presence for Taker. We can just pretend that Taker and Mysterio didn't happen. We don't have any recollection of this. We don't mention the person who said the quote originally. For obvious reasons, of course. But in terms of the... Sorry,
the phrase is now, the radio edit has no memory of that.
The redacted has no memory. We could go with that all day. So... Now I have a decision to make. So, you both presented pretty good cards. Both have two different directions on them. Scott, you went with a very story-driven card. You had a story going through with the WWE gaining the advantage of Lethal Lockdown, progressing into the main event later that night, the dissension between Jericho and Cena. Jack, you went with, simply put, just wanting to show off the best that both companies have to offer. It doesn't have to be the big guys, as we mentioned. It can be the other talent that don't normally get the time to shine on the card. Both fantastic directions. In terms of the cards, I just have to look at some things. So, you both had Kane and Abyss, which, obviously, for a lot of people, that is a dream match. Just appearing on both your cards kind of shows that. Mm-hmm. The ladder match with RVD and Mysterio, that is a match that, even if that could have happened at an ECW one night stand, rather than that thing with Sabu we got, I'd have been happy with that. Lethal Lockdown sounds like absolute mayhem. Compared to that, you have a clash of, like as Jack said, AJ Styles arguably in his prime at that point, Taker also arguably, in his prime at this point as well. Oh, you two don't make it easy for me.
I think something that's worth mentioning is that what's interesting is that we both had WWE winning in the end, and I don't know what Jack's reasoning was, but for me, like I love TNA, but I think if you had me booking against the 2007 year that we booked previously, or even somewhere later to now, closer to now or something like that, mid 2000s or closer to now, I would have booked TNA to win all day. But I just think with Hogan and the Hogan era and everything that was going on there, it felt like, even though I said some aspects are doing better than WWE, like tag teams and people like that, I just think that if you look at the 2010 rosters, it's clear that WWE had to go over, even though they aren't technically the underdog. I don't know what Jack had the same reason or anything like that.
Mine was it was purely with the kind of the direction my show was going, like the spots that I had like at the end of like different matches. It wouldn't have made sense if TNA won at the end, with how some things, but if it turned over, then like having the Undertaker win would have no meaning essentially. And I wanted that cool point of him just like striking a lightning bolt on the TNA sign, just it falling to pieces, Vince coming to celebrate, then you just get chokeslammed, and that's like the show ends. Everyone gets to be happy at that. So there's like everyone's a winner type thing. So that was the reason why I went with it.
Mm-hmm. And those are both like pretty good visuals to end the show on as well. For Scott, you have Team WWE, like 5 of their biggest names, standing united together in victory, with Vince coming down to, possibly claim celebration for himself, as McMahon does. He was coming off a very bad face. He just had his ass whipped by the entire Hart family. Half of them couldn't move, and, like, it was enough for him there. Jack, you have just that, I can visualize it just now, Taker doing the pose, and the lightning bolt coming down, and even the other thing that I forgot to mention, you even had Paul Bearer come back for this, to be there at his side, to counteract Ric Flair. That is a dream. Like,
though,
Scott, go on.
Paul Bearer wasn't around in June 2010, he came back in October of 2010.
The website that I checked, he's on the roster as a manager. That was the only reason that I put him in, and I saw that. I was like, I can use that. Right, okay, fair enough. So it could just be different citing of sources or something. I don't know, but where I found it said he was a manager.
That's fair.
Just throwing it out there.
I'm double checking.
This is warfare.
I do
recall he came back because this was I think it was after. Yeah, it would have been like late September, early October, I think, because this is when Night of Champions happened, and he had the Taker loss to Kane at that one.
Yeah.
A night that was celebrated quite wildly in the McLeod household, I understand.
Yeah, because Kane never beat Taker. I'd never known Kane to beat Undertaker, so it was a shock to me.
Just like, he won! Yeah! But he, like, obviously, like bearing the point, like, obviously, Bearer being there with Taker against Styles with Rick would be a great visual. Going by the timeline, however, of course, wouldn't make sense as explained, but still a fantastic visual nonetheless. So, okay. So, ultimately, you look at a card that shows off the strengths of. You have 2 cards that show off the strengths of both companies in different ways. One puts on an absolute show. The other is a show with some extra perks that would put it above the other. And there is a lot that goes on in these cards, and by a very slight margin, I will emphasize, by a very, very slight margin, the win today goes to Scott McLeod.
Right.
That, like, narrow margin, that was a tough one for me on that one. Like,
that's fair enough.
Like, absolutely narrow. I'll come to you, Jack, first. Like, I think, obviously, Scott pointed out, like, a couple of timeline discrepancies, and, like, I think, factoring them in, of course, it does kind of hamper some parts, but your card was a fantastic one. Just that visual, like I said earlier, of Taker knocking down the sign with the lightning. Like, I wouldn't have even thought to do a bit like that.
There was something that came to head, but I knew it was soon that obviously the stipulation was, I was like, oh fuck. I knew that I was on the back foot already. So like, I am not disheartened at losing this. I knew that it was always going to be going one way. I'm just happy that I was able to construct something that I was happy with, and I clearly need to find a better source for these historical inaccuracies that have happened here.
Yeah, just like I don't know how well university libraries may provide sources on this kind of topic, but I mean, hell, we used to record with Callie, so we'll give them a shout. But Jack, absolutely fantastic effort. That was like very, very close, my friend. So be very happy with that one, and I would hope that we'd see you again on the show at some point in the future.
Oh, we'll need to see. That's 2 L's now. 2 L's where I've this the we nitpicks have cost me. So I'll need to have a rethink and maybe actually kind of study whatever stipulation I get given next if I'm back properly.
No, just think, 2 L's, like 2 wrongs make a right. Just think about that, and we will move on to the winner of this match. Scott, you've been able to redeem yourself following the loss in the Book It tournament. How do you feel now, having taken a W here?
I feel much better. I feel much better. For me, I was slightly more confident going into this. Not to count Jack out completely. I know I was happy that he went first to take the pressure off me a little bit, but he had a stronger card, like you said. It came down to the wire, I think. So the only way to go from here, Jack, is up. But I'm happy to have redeemed myself in a TNA based match. And so hopefully I can get something. No, I'm not complaining. As I said, I'm a fan of TNA, but I'm hoping I can get something different next time around. So yeah, I will be back. But I think it was obvious I had to be the winner. This is the way.
Oh, he ends it on a Star Wars quote.
Yeah, I thought you meant.
Do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? This is the Iron Man of a galaxy far, far away, trying to suck up to Le Champion of a galaxy far, far away. That's what this is.
Why would I win? So I got to you, I've already won.
I'll bear that in mind, my friend. I will bear that in mind. But, folks, I do hope that at some point we will have both these guys back again, and I wish you both the best of luck when you guys return to Book It. That is all for us here. Ladies and gentlemen, the next time you see us, it will be a number 1 contenders match as Sarah Grieve takes on Strack, booking a Queen of the Ring pay-per-view. Folks, don't miss that episode when it comes out. Keep an eye out on our socials and feel free to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Suplex Retweet. We're here on YouTube. Hit subscribe. Please join us. We'd love to have you here. Folks, in the meantime, I've been Daniel. He has been Jack Graham. He has been Scott McLeod. Thank you all, and we will catch you later. See ya.